Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, Badbaby, accompanied by my co-host, Robert Pepino. And tonight we have with us Michael Gilskey. I hope I'm saying this right, Michael Gilskey. If I'm saying your last name wrong, I apologize. So you can correct me after I start out with my opening bumper song. And we are going to be talking about colloidal silver. Michael sells colloidal silver machines, and he's going to explain to you all about that tonight. And we're going to cover a few other subjects, too. And I just showed my true colors. Oopsie. That's what I like about live radio. Welcome to the show, Michael. How are you this evening? Did I flatter your name?
Yes, you pronounced it just fine. It's just two syllables, Gilskey. It's a Polak name that has it's been Americanized. It was when my great grandparents or great grandparents came here. It was Jagielski.
Oh, okay. Well, I love Polish people. They're funny, they're happy, and they love vodka, and so do I.
Michael, just so you know, I have a very good friend. He's a doctor, and his name is Bidinski. So he's Polish as well, and he's a wonderful human being, and I love him dearly.
Well, I feel like I'm in good company with the Polacks because Copernicus was a Polak.
Yes, he was.
And he was one of the pioneers of the scientific revolution.
Absolutely.
So, Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in manufacturing colloidal silver generators.
Okay, that's kind of a strange and interesting story, I guess. I had a friend who was interested in alternative health modalities of one sort or another, and she came across colloidal silver, and we started looking into that because there was a little farmer's market that she attended. She did artwork, and I knew how to do things with electronics and chemistry and so on, and so I said, well, you know, I think I can make a machine here that will make this stuff. And so that's where it started. This was back in the year 2000. And it went through 5 or 6 iterations before I came up with a product that was quite saleable on the Internet. I got on the Internet in 2012. My website came up in 2014. My website is lifeforcecolloidalsilver.com. And since that time on the Internet, I do most of my business on Amazon. I've sold 15,000 generators on Amazon, and I've just gotten all sorts of wonderful feedback from people that have told me how much it has helped their health, and it's really astounding to me to have people call me up and say, "You saved my life." That's really quite amazing. So that's kind of maybe the high points there.
And why don't you explain? Sorry, Robert. I just got one more question. I'll let you have the floor. But why don't you explain to those who don't know what colloidal silver is exactly what it is?
Well, that's a good place to start because colloidal silver is it's also called silver water. It is a colloidal suspension, unlike a solution. That's a technical sort of thing to explain, which maybe I can go into later. But what it is silver nanoparticles, which are suspended in distilled water. And it's made with a little machine that passes a current through the distilled water with silver electrodes, and you then produce very dilute suspensions of between about 5 and 40 parts per million of the silver water. And silver has been known historically for a very long time to be a water purifier. You can be licensed to sell colloidal silver as a antifungal, and the research shows that it kills just about every kind of virus, bacteria that exists, along with a lot of single-celled organisms. I have testimonials about people with Lyme's disease, yeast infections, candida, different sorts of fungus, where they have told me that the colloidal silver did, brought them back to a very good state of health. I have also a lot of testimonials about cancer. I mean, I'm really kind of amazed because the spectrum is from toenail fungus to cancer, and that's quite amazing for something as simple as this.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. I was just going to interject and saying, and you kind of just answered my question, because I was saying I was going to bring up the part about the parts per million. Absolutely. Specifically, there are, because, you hear these stories, and of course it's always touted out or brought out by the mainstream media. Remember the whole story about the blue man who, was creating the colloidal silver, and the guy turned blue. Remember that story? And I'm like,
there are still YouTube videos featuring this person online,
right.
And that sort of thing can happen, but only if you're taking your colloidal silver with food, because the silver becomes turned into silver chloride because of the hydrochloric acid in the stomach.
Right.
Silver chloride is a compound that is used in photographic emulsions. It migrates to the skin. When light strikes it, it chemically binds to the subcutaneous fat under the skin, and that's how you turn gray-blue. But it's entirely preventable by simply taking your colloidal silver internally on an empty stomach.
Wasn't he taking it in excessive amounts, too?
Oh, yes. In fact, on the video, I saw this on YouTube just today. I wanted to review a few things, and yes, he says, well, I'm not taking nearly as much as I used to be. And my take on it is that it's not so much how much you're taking, or that the particle sizes are too big or this sort of thing, but when you're taking it. Because on an empty stomach, all of your friendly gut bacteria are hiding out in the mucus layer in the stomach lining and the intestinal lining, and so the silver water can pass through and be absorbed very quickly before you eat a meal, and it only takes about 5 or 10 minutes to do that. That way, you completely there's no hydrochloric acid present, so that the silver particles can be absorbed without any chemical changes.
You bring up a very good point, because you're talking about the alkali body versus the acidic body. And because our toxic environment is so acidic, silver really balances that out to the alkali body. And it basically not transform, but reforms through its body to the natural state. Can you talk about those two differentiating balances and how silver actuates that?
Well, silver is quite an amazing thing about many of the things it can do. And actually, when you make electrochemically produced colloidal silver, as you do with our machines, the distilled water rises from a pH of 7, which is neutral, to a pH of about 10.5 to 11. So you're already, when you're taking it in, you're already taking in alkali water. And, of course, there's a great deal of information out there on the Internet about these water machines that produce alkali water, which you can ingest, which is so important to maintaining the proper pH of the body. One of the things that I encounter all the time is people that are dealing with cancer, and I tell them that the first thing is that let's put colloidal silver on the shelf here for a moment and talk about the pH of the body. There's wonderful information out there. There's a book called The Calcium Factor by Carl Reich and Robert Barefoot, which points out that Dr. Otto Warburg in 1934 found out that cancer and virtually every kind of disease there is cannot live in an alkali environment. The natural pH of your body is between 7.2 and 7.5. Most people are in acidosis. I checked myself a number of years ago about that and found out that I was down at about 6.6. And so I started making some moves to change that. And yes, people have told me that colloidal silver has brought some of their cancers into remission. I can see that as a direct effect there possibly, because some cancers are viral or caused by funguses, it appears. That's what I've been reading the research on the Internet. But tumors are a different animal, if you want to put it that way. And the body naturally produces cancerous cells every day. And what happens is that they are attacked by the white blood cells, which actually digest them. And so the body has its own mechanism to fight cancer. But if you put colloidal silver in the body, it appears that both from research and testimonials, it acts as a second immune system where it can fight opportunistic bacterial and viral infections that go along with things like getting cancer or AIDS or things like that. And so the body can then fight that tumor and focus on that, and the colloidal silver can focus on the opportunistic infections.
Well, you know what? Go ahead.
Jay, have you ever seen the video where they do surgery on a cancer patient and they blast the tumor with the baking soda solution?
No, I haven't seen that, but the one of the things that I have learned from my customers and people that have been addressing cancer and have wanted to add colloidal silver into the mix do talk about the baking soda cure, which essentially is taking a solution of baking soda 2 or 3 times a day on an empty stomach, because of course you don't want to just use the baking soda to neutralize your stomach acid. So on an empty stomach it will pass right through and get into your tissues. And with what I have what's been reported to me is that raises your pH from the low 6s up to 7 in about 10 to 14 days. Now, of course, over the long term, what we see is that's going to produce too much sodium in the body, or put too much sodium in the body. And so, what I am doing myself is that I move to coral calcium. Coral calcium is powdered coral, which has the natural balance of calcium and magnesium in it, plus a whole bunch of trace metals. And what is nice about that is that calcium is the number one mineral or calcium carbonate in the body, which regulates the pH of the blood and the tissues. And in fact, people in osteoporosis, my take on that is that the calcium is being taken out of the bones in order to raise the pH of the body.
Wow. My question was this, Michael. Because of all the chemtrail spraying that's been taking place since around 2006, and we've seen the rise of autism go through the roof, which no doctor, which just blows me away, is acknowledging. And any doctor who probably does speak out about this is discredited and dislicensed. Do you know any effects from colloidal silver or any other homeopathic cure that can, reverse the effects? Because these children are basically, they're basically being destroyed by the toxic chemicals that are being sprayed: aluminum, barium, sulfur dioxide, and so many more chemicals. Do you have a thought on that?
Well, my first thought is that aluminum is not only in chemtrails but in vaccines.
Absolutely, along with mercury and squalene. Yes.
Yeah, that should tell you something right there. It's a really sad legacy of what is happening. There is a natural chelating agent that the body has as its own arsenal. It's called EDTA, and it chelates heavy metals it isn't so effective against things like aluminum, but I don't have really anything that has been shared with me exactly about removing aluminum from the body. But it certainly has, the research I've read about it is that aluminum is definitely implicated in Alzheimer's and autism, and I can't see how they cannot see a connection here between vaccines, for instance, and chemtrails and the introduction of aluminum into the ecosystem and into our bodies.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. There's so much on this subject. I mean, look, I remember reading articles as a young man. I don't want to say how old I am because I would just date myself, right? But I remember reading articles, and even in movies, they talked about why they put, you know, that generation of people. I'm talking about 1900s, right? At the beginning of the 19th century, or 20th century, you know, everybody was putting silver dollars into their glass of water at night and then drinking it in the morning. And it never really dawned on me, Michael, until I figured it out. They were extracting the nanoparticles of silver to ingest in the morning, which really made them really healthy. And I never figured that out until, you know, many, many years later. I'm like, oh, my God, they really had it right. They understood. They knew. Well, yeah. They knew that.
The history goes way back. I mean, the earliest that I'm aware of the mention of silver as a water purifier or an antibiotic is going back to Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar II used silver vessels and had his water boiled and put in silver vessels when he went on military campaigns. So he certainly did, and other people there understood the power of silver as a water purifier and an antibiotic. Roman soldiers would wrap a silver coin around a wound so that it wouldn't get infected. In the Civil War, soldiers going through the swamps in the South would swallow a silver coin. The acids, the natural acids that are in food, for instance, are responsible for the silver spoon effect. In other words, people that really did have the money to have silver, you know, true silverware, the natural acids in the food will dissolve some of the silver. It'll be in ionic form, but that's not a problem. There's a big bunch of disinformation out there that ionic silver is bad. It's not as effective as colloidal silver, but it's not bad. And in any case, a baby, for instance, you know, being fed some sort of, like, you know, mashed up fruit or whatever is going to be getting, you know, ascorbic acid, acetic acid, and those are going to dissolve some of the silver off of the spoon. And, of course, the adults eating their food with silver spoons or silverware are going to also have that antimicrobial effect. I remember clear back in the 50s, I'm 66 years old. I remember back in the early 50s that they were still delivering milk to the back door.
Right.
And my mother would put a silver dime in the milk, and it would last a few more days longer before it went sour because, of course, milk has acidophilus bacteria in it and that sort of thing. And because there's lactic acid in there as well, you would dissolve some of the silver, and it would prevent the microbes from taking over for a longer period of time.
Well, I have a question, because you just brought this up. It's very interesting. You know, the whole pasteurization of milk really destroys all the natural antibiotics of the milk. It destroys the natural minerals of it, and I think that was done purposely.
Pasteurization is like a sledgehammer. It kills, in order to kill the bad bacteria, they're killing everything else good in there, and those molecules are delicate. When you heat them, they break apart. So, yes, pasteurized milk or, you know, non-pasteurized milk is more healthy than pasteurized milk. But, of course, you know, across the board, there are, you know, the FDA and, all of the medical authorities and so on are against not pasteurizing things because, of course, there is always the risk of some sort of pathogen getting in there and being spread in a unpasteurized milk supply. But nevertheless, that is the truth of the matter.
So what do they do, Michael? They go out there and they spread the fear factor, making people believe if they buy unpasteurized milk, they're going to get sick from it, and it's a danger and a threat, and blah, blah, blah. And actually in New Jersey and New York, people drive across the border to go to the Amish to buy their milk, and if they get caught bringing it back, there's a huge fine.
Yeah, raw milk. The Amish have been drinking raw milk for a long time, but yes, you do have to do these things in a sanitary condition. I remember my grandparents and living out and visiting them on their farm there, and they had their own cream separator and all this kind of stuff, but everything was washed with boiling water and that sort of thing in order to keep all of those components really clean. And my grandmother used to churn her own butter. I had buttermilk with little pieces of butter floating around in it and so on like that. It was just amazing.
Yeah, and the Federal Death Administration, the FDA, has deemed all ruling and all knowing, which they are actually the collaborators with the New World Order. I'm gonna go a little deep here, Mike. I know you
don't have a problem with that. I agree with I agree with that.
The bottom line is it's about taking the nutrition and health of the mind, body, and spirit away so their New World Order could kick in. But, you mentioned it just before we went on the show. We were speaking prior to that, revelations are, reality and revelations are coming forward. All truth is being spilled forward now. So it's an incredible thing. But this is the thing, that they have been using these tactics, these manipulative tactics, to lull people to sleep because they do them incrementally, very slowly, very, seductively, saying one thing and knowing that it causes another. So they have lulled everybody into this, and here we find ourselves, 118 years or so, or probably longer, Michael, but slowly entrenching themselves and digging themselves in so where they make us become incapacitated through all their poisons, their lies, their manipulations, collusion, and tactics, in order for them to have total and complete control. And we've had an incredible revelation today, which you, me, Badbaby, and everybody else who is well awake and aware of all this have known this forever. But it's now infiltrating into the sleeping masses, and the awakening is happening. So maybe, and I'd like to get your incredible thought on this, is that now this incredible transformation is going to take place. Now, it has taken them 100 years for them to manipulate, control, collude, and do everything else. But it seems like almost in an instant, at a snap of a finger, everything is being unwound that they created.
Yes, I agree with that. I see the memo being released today, which I see as the tip of the iceberg, which is going to show that there really is, in fact, a deep state. I remember, as I was telling you before the broadcast, that I had posted on my own personal Facebook page some information about the QAnon phenomenon, and one of the respondents was saying that I was a tinfoil hat-wearing deep stater, and I just was thinking to myself, the revelations are going to show that, in fact, there has been a conspiracy. And, of course, the whole business about conspiracies has been, how can I put it, badmouth for a long time, that everybody that is talking conspiracy is looking for something that really isn't there. Well, if you go back and actually read the history of the AMA, for instance, and how allopathic medicine became the dominant medical modality here in the West, or in the United States at any rate, and all of the herbal remedies, all of the natural remedies were put, set aside. It was an intentional.
It was a collusion, Michael. It was a collusion.
It was intentional to do that. The whole licensing of medical personnel and facilities and so on is all driven by this corporate deep state in order to get corporate control. One of the things I keep trying to tell people on Facebook is that the mainstream media is corporate media. All of its bills are paid by its advertisers, who are all corporations. And they are not giving you anything but fake news. My take on fake news is that it's corporate propaganda in order to push the corporate agenda, which they cloak in the liberal narrative. And they really aren't feminists. They really aren't for racial equality. They're really pushing for totalitarian control by the corporations.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. So the totality of their totalitarianism is finally falling apart. And we're seeing the narrative now being spun harder than it ever has by the corporate mainstream media. Because the reality is that the mainstream media has been in collusion with their masters. And the masters are who? The ones who own these corporate mainstream propaganda machines. And again, people don't understand this, Michael, is that when you combine corporation with government, it becomes fascism. And they still don't understand it because of the propaganda machine behind the push of through, right, this so-called liberal agenda. They don't understand
it's not really a liberal agenda. It's a liberal narrative that they have borrowed in order to cloak their agenda. What's interesting about the word fascism, if you go back to when it was first coined by Mussolini, it meant corporatism in Italian. So fascism is corporatism because a corporate entity is really a pyramid with a single actor at the top who is an absolute tyrant. And of course, so you don't see any democracy in a corporation unless it's employee owned. Then you have something which is a democracy, not a tyranny. And of course, they want to move in this direction because they want to have total control. It's really a sad situation. I mean, what is amazing to me is that the people that support Hillary Clinton, for instance, I was just amazed that nobody could see that that she was being propped up by the mainstream media. And the biggest thing that convinced me was in the summer of 2016, for 2.5 months, there were millions of people marching in France because they had rolled back protections against the workers there, and not a single news article on the mainstream media ever appeared about that. Because what would it have done? It would have supported Bernie Sanders. And that would have already made it much harder for Hillary Clinton to have stolen the nomination. And so it's just amazing. You know, that really was kind of what really wrapped it up for me, that, yes, the mainstream media is absolutely controlled by the corporations, and they are not reporting. I mean, part of the thing is it's not so much reporting the news, it's also not reporting what's going on.
Yeah, well, you just nailed it. What's not going on is probably more important than what is being touted through the mainstream media, even as the veil is being, lifted. What has not been being reported forever, like the fact that, the Clinton pay to play situation when you remember when the Haiti earthquake hit, right? Billions of dollars.
$4.1 billion go?
Exactly.
It went into the Clinton Foundation and disappeared. They built 2 houses, and that $4.1 billion is gone. And then what about the dozens of sources which are which have been reporting about the Clinton body count for the last 25 years. You know,
exactly.
Where there's smoke, there's fire, as far as I'm concerned. and then, you know, you look at that video where Hillary Clinton is talking about the death of Gaddafi, and she just has this witch-like laugh, you know, that we saw, it wasn't.
He died.
Oh,
he died.
Yeah, he died.
Exactly.
We came, yeah, and it's like, and then cackle, cackle, cackle. It's
right.
like, are you kidding me? And nobody can see through this? And of course, that is the big difficulty, is that there is a large minority of people in the United States, maybe on the order of 35 or 40%, that are completely brainwashed by the corporate media and don't understand they're not getting the truth.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Go ahead, Beth.
Not to mention what she did to Kathy O'Brien.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, all the women that she destroyed that were either raped or, used by Bill Clinton. I call him Slut Willie, and I call her Hillary.
Slut Willie, he's really showing his, he needs a little colloidal silver. He looks a little peaked lately.
And let's not forget the whole pedophile thing, Jeffrey Epstein. Good old Slick Willie going to Jeffrey Epstein's island, I think, 26 times.
And Pizzagate.
Yep.
And it's like, how much information has to be out there before people will say, wait a minute, we're getting we're getting spun here by the corporate media. They're not talking about
the problem, Michael. Yeah, have you ever heard of Kevin Annett?
No, I haven't.
Okay, he's a good friend of mine. He is a pastor that was thrown out of his church for allowing the local Indian tribe people come up to the pulpit and testify, and they were talking about how the Queen and the Catholic Church was taking them out of these orphanages and torturing them and experimenting on them. And so he actually had taken the Queen, the Pope, the Bushes to court in Brussels, and they've been found guilty of child trafficking. That's why the Pope stepped down. Everyone says the Pope stepped down because he was sick. No. They served a warrant on him, and they gave him the option. Step down and never leave Vatican property or come with us.
You're talking about Ratzinger. Ratzinger. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And see, we cover this on Fight for Our Freedom Radio and have for years. We've had Kevin out here explaining his stories, and there you can go to his webpage and actually see live videos of these people's testimony. You can tell the look on their faces, the horror that they've gone through, and some of the stories he tells are just unreal about how the elite take these kidnapped children. Once a year, they'll go to this castle over in Brussels, and they have a live human hunt. They strip these children down, release them out into the woods, and they hunt them. And then with the little boys, after they shoot them, they mount their penises as trophies.
That was...
I don't know even where to begin with all of that. And it's just all of this stuff is going to be coming out, and it's going to be a huge shock.
Kevin's story is really coming out. I mean, since Pizzagate came out, more of Kevin's evidence has been coming out, and he's getting out there more on mainstream radio, and he's being acknowledged because he's actually going into the Catholic churches and handing out flyers to people telling them, if you donate to this church, you're in collusion with a crime, because these are crimes against humanity, and a lot of people don't realize what's really going on underneath. And this is the problem that I find, that when you talk about something like this that's so horrendous, people just want to stick their head in the sand and say, I don't want to hear this. This is too horrible. And I don't care as long as it's not happening to me. But it could happen to you if they stole your child.
Well, it will be a commonplace if this isn't changed. And the thing is that it's I try to when I do speak about this with some of the people I talk with, and it really is quite wonderful in my business because being a fringe business with a fringe product, I get a lot of fringe people, but many of them are brilliant and are quite well aware of what we've been talking about this evening. But for those that are not, I just try to start with some of the obvious evidence that you can see about the mainstream media and so on, because moving into some of this stuff is extremely hard for some people. And I've been reading all about the QAnon stuff, and that is just really quite astounding about what is, about how the nuts and bolts of the deep state work and how the Clintons planted all kinds of people starting more than 20 years ago into the government so that no matter who was in power as president, things were just being run by this internal cabal. And it's a really amazing what Donald Trump is doing. I mean, the Trump story is really astounding to me, having been trained by Norman Vincent Peale, and also his uncle was friends with Eisenhower. And as you know, Eisenhower met with the aliens at Andrews Air Force Base in California. He had a heart attack shortly after. The other thing is that the information that has been put out there is that Trump's uncle and Eisenhower spoke about all of this stuff with Donald Trump when he was like a teenager. And he's the only person that really knows about how this is working. And why is he being surrounded by generals? Because there's a lot of generals out there in the armed services that are quite well aware of what's in military intelligence and what is happening internally to try and subvert this country and to bring about the New World Order. And Donald Trump is really going to clean house, and this memo is just the tip of the iceberg, and I'm very happy that it is happening.
Yeah, Michael, it is the linchpin, without a question. And you brought up so many points. I mean, yes, I don't know this because obviously you understand this much better than I do because I'm hearing this for the first time. But he was privy to this information as a teenager. And now you just made me, do a flashback to saying, well, in all the interviews that I saw with him saying, well, maybe I don't know. I don't think I want to run this president, but, things are not looking good. And he had said this repeatedly.
If you go on and look at QAnon's post, there is a fantastic speech that Trump gave early in his campaign where he spelled out exactly what he was going to do, and he's doing it, and it's really quite astounding. Now, here's another thing that, for the tinfoil hat people that are going to have fun poking fun at me and all of
that would be me too, Michael, and Badbaby.
And that is you can see the photographs on the internet of how both his airplane and his helicopter were accompanied by ET craft. He has the support of the ETs. They know what he's up to, and he has their protection.
All right, I don't want to sound too off the fringe here, Michael, but I'm going to tell you because I know you don't know me.
Well, that's about the most fringe thing I could say, isn't it? That I believe in ETs and that.
Right, but let me throw.
You're talking to an alien abductor. Right. Robert has been abducted.
Well, I don't call myself an abductee, but a contactee. And they told me specifically that when I was speaking with my friends, and that's what I call my friends from above, they told me, yes, you're going to have a new world order, just not the one that they think they're going to have. And I'm seeing all of this unfold in front of my eyes. And were they right? Because I'm watching this all unfold, and as their agenda is completely falling apart, boy, were my friends right when they said we are going to have a new world order, just not the one they thought they were going to have, meaning the deep, dark, satanic, sadistic new world order of complete enslavement of the human, the human entities.
Actually has never happened, or has been only allowed to happen for a short period of time, because this planet has always been a Genesis project and has always been under the watchful eye of the very advanced ETs. And the thing is Hollywood is so crazy about ETs. They show them as these nasty human-eating, monsters and so on. When in fact, if you met one of these humanoids, they would, and you have, you would recognize their fantastic spiritual evolvement, that so-called miracles, just as Jesus could. They can manifest objects in their hands. They don't have factories, for instance, to make their spaceships. If they need a component, if they want to have a new spaceship or a new upgrade to their spaceship, they manifest it out of their mind.
That's right.
Now, I want to direct you to a site here that will blow your mind, and this is probably the ultimate fringe, but I'm going to put it out there, a site called Ramtha.com. He has on that site, I don't know if you're aware of Jay-Z Knight, that she...
Spell that out for me so I can put it in the chat.
R-A-M-T-H-A, Ramtha.com.
R-A-M-T-H...
T-H-A. Ramtha.com. And Jay-Z Knight, who was a celebrity 25, 30 years ago when she went on to the Merv Griffin show and channeled Ramtha. That's out there on the internet, too, if you look for it, or on YouTube. In any case, Ramtha has a prophecy on the Ramtha.com site in the newsletter section. And it's about an hour long. He talks about Hillary Clinton being a complete criminal, and that he and his fellow ETs, because Ramtha is now an ET, he's an ascended master, but also he lives as an ET in a giant spaceship and so on. And he has spoken again about how Trump is being protected. Trump is their point man to clean things up. Here's the bottom line. Ramtha has said in the past that the Earth has had thousands of civilizations, and for over a period of several billion years. And some of these civilizations have become corrupt as ours is, and in fact, you can't really call it. How can we call this a civilization when we have more?
I call it kindergarten. This is
it isn't even kindergarten. It's complete capitulation to the animal mind. But in any case, the point is that the ETs have actually wiped out entire civilizations of billions of people when they were starting to misuse their technology. Because here's the bottom line. The Earth is a living being, and it is a platform for the evolution of spirit. Each time we come in here and reincarnate, what happens is that we make a little bit of an advancement. And if we make enough of an advancement, we don't come back to this particular planet or this particular level of learning. And the planet has to be protected above the bodies. And by the way, killing a whole bunch of bodies, billions of bodies like that, is not taken lightly, but it's also understood that the spirit does not get killed, only the garment, only the mechanism that the spirit uses as a vehicle.
Very well put.
This is really super fringe stuff for people, so if you thought you were just going to talk to a guy that was going to talk about colloidal silver,
Michael, this is where we live, on the fringe.
Yeah.
We cover this kind of stuff all the time, so you're right on our homepage, buddy.
Yes, and actually, I have been a student in Ramtha School of Enlightenment for 25 years. And so that's where I'm coming from. And I'll tell you, this guy knows some stuff, and he's powerful, and he's got a bunch of people with him that are cleaning this mess up. And you're going to...
let's talk about the pharmaceutical poison for a few minutes.
Yes,
this is the way I look at these commercials.
Yes.
Hi, I want to take blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to say any names, but I'm taking blah, 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 and my life is so wonderful. I'm out here riding bicycles. I'm fit and thin and happier than two doves in a meadowlark, and everything's just so wonderful. I can't stand myself. I'm so happy. But at the end, they go, and side effects are heart failure, blood pressure, liver failure, intestinal failure, diarrhea, headaches, migraines, rip your heart out, hemorrhoids, you name it, and if you can get out of bed tomorrow without dying, have another pill.
Yeah, they usually put the end of that statement. Oh, and by the way, it could cause death.
Yeah. One of the side effects is death.
And here's another one. And if you feel suicidal, call your doctor.
Yeah. He'll prescribe some more crap for you.
Yeah, most people that feel suicidal don't generally call anybody.
Exactly. And this is how I feel about it. Here's this wonderful new drug we're telling you about. It's going to cure whatever illness this is saying, and we dare you to take it.
Let's put it in even more stark terms here in terms of why are they advertising prescription drugs, which you can't get over the counter but only through your doctor, and why are these pharmaceutical companies advertising those when, in fact, the person there can't actually get it? They've got to go to their doctor. And it's like, wait a minute here. They don't do this in other countries. It's a crazy sort of thing. But you see, what has happened, in my view, is that the medical community in this country has become a legion of pill pushers.
Yeah.
Yes. Because I'll tell you why they send you to your doctor. Because they've already been in your doctor's office and with their little cute briefcase and said, if you push this for us, you get a free vacation in Florida and all the golfing you want for a whole week.
Yeah,
that's right.
I just posted on Facebook about this little West Virginia town where two pharmacies there have moved somewhere in the neighborhood of about 30 million oxycodone and what's the other opioid drug, that there's enough for 6,500 pills per person in that little town.
In that one town, yeah.
It's absolutely crazy.
It is absolutely crazy. And, and the problem is that we've been raised as baby boomers to believe that the cops and the doctors and all of them are the good guys. And actually, we're in the twilight zone. People need to wake up and take a look at, at their own health and not let someone, just because they went to school and were told in a book to push these pills down someone's throat, to just go along with it. What really woke me up about it, and it was years ago, and I have another call that I do with Reiki Master Mike Goldberg, and we have taught holistic healing for, probably about 10 years now, and also deep meditation. And, the thing is, once you are awakened to a different way to cure your body than to go to the doctor and push a bunch of poison down your throat, you become aware of what's really going on. And one night I was up late, and I was listening to Duke and the Doctor. I don't know if you are familiar with her, but she's a naturopath and an MD. And she was reading out of the medical journal, and she was talking about cholesterol medicine. And she says, you know what, you don't need to be on cholesterol medicine. And she explained when they first started talking about high cholesterol, they made up all the numbers so that they could push these pills. And she says, and when they put you on these pills, they don't tell you, well, this will cause cancer in your liver. They just say, we got to get your cholesterol down.
Yeah, it's nuts. Like with cancer, chemotherapy was discovered by the application of mustard gas, and it turned out that it shrunk tumors and so on. It appears to me that chemotherapy is poison. I've read research on the internet where it says that people that do not take chemotherapy versus people that do live 3 to 4 times longer. And
yes.
so, and as I pointed out earlier in our whole discussion here about cancer, the oncologists do utterly nothing about the pH of the body, which would be very cheap to fix and very easy to fix. But, of course, at $100,000 a month for chemotherapy, there's no money in it.
Right.
It's multi-billion-dollar business.
Not to mention, when my husband died of cancer, a lot of the people that were in there getting their chemo were drinking chocolate milkshakes and trying to calm their stomach with milkshakes. And all they were doing was feeding the tumor with sugar, and the doctors don't address that either.
That's right.
Yes, I understand that. I mean, in my business, I mean, I've had some really sad testimonials. There was a lady that was washing her husband's feet. They were very elderly and in their 80s with colloidal silver because he was diabetic and he was prone to getting gangrene in his feet. He had to go to an assisted living home, and they would not let her do that. He got gangrene within a couple of weeks and died. And it's really sad because the testimonials out there about any of these sorts of infections, people just tell me that it is like night and day to be using colloidal silver on all sorts of topical infections. And it's just such a sad testimonial about how the medical community is not allowing any kind of natural cures, natural treatments into the whole process. It's really a sad situation. I'm not a physician, and I have to make a disclaimer that, all of the things that I'm talking about with my colloidal silver are based on testimonials and third-party research, because the FDA says that I can't say colloidal silver does anything. That's right. Because it is regulated as a nutritional supplement. And so, for instance, on my website, I have disclaimers all over the place because I have to do that. And but the thing is that if you ask me about the testimonials, I mean, circumstantial evidence is as high as Mount Everest, and it's like, good heavens, how can you look the other way about this?
Michael, this is directly brought down by the AMA. Why? Because the AMA is fed by who? The elites, the money masters. Okay, they trickle the money down in through the system, right? And then the AMA, if they don't go according to what the elites say, well, guess what? You lose your license, you lose the funding, you lose everything, and now they are put right back into the ranks of us, who are all of us trying to fight the system of total corruption. This has been going on for millennia, my friend.
It's fake science that's going on right now because most of the science is now being funded by corporations, especially in the medical field. It's being funded by the pharmaceutical companies. Let me give you a really nasty example. When Ebola broke out in
Haiti,
Africa, in 2014, it turns out there is a Department of Defense classified document that was released and is on the internet and is also is published by some of my competitors that showed that colloidal silver kills all of the hemorrhagic fever viruses, including Ebola.
That's right.
Colloidal silver was not brought into Africa. It was not pushed. What they wanted to do was to create a very expensive, high-profit treatment that they could use and make a lot of money on. So it didn't matter how many people died or got hurt. It was important that somebody made a ton of money.
Right. It's always about money. It's always about the control of power at the top from the banksters who print money out of thin air. And people, see, this is the thing. If people will wake up to the fact that these manipulating psychopathic demons print money out of thin air to control our lives, and people would say, you know what, we're done with it, we're over it, we're not going to deal with it, it would end. It would end within a week. Mike.
Well, yes,
but the problem is they don't. They're kept asleep from that process of awakening.
Now, let me point out something though. The ETs. Why haven't the ETs intervened more than they have?
I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
Yeah, and you're well aware of this too. That number one is free will. And the people that are so-called asleep are using their free will to ignore what is really happening. Because it's hard to take absolute responsibility for your reality. Nobody else is creating your reality. Now, that's one thing that I want to talk about in terms of health as well. You should be in charge of your own health. In fact, it even goes so deep as to say that every attitude that you have is outpictured in your body as a condition in your body. I don't care if you take colloidal silver. I don't care if you take chemotherapy. I don't care if you do any of those sorts of things. If you hate yourself, you're going to have cancer.
Yep.
And
I agree.
You can go to Louise Hay's books and read about the different conditions that are caused by different attitudes. For instance, very deep selfishness produces, produces diabetes. Okay? So these sorts of attitudes, yes, we can do all of these sort of mass-to-mass type things, but ultimately we really have to look at consciousness and free will. And, yes, part of what we're doing tonight is to try to be a catalyst to help to wake people up to the fact that they are choosing not to do anything. Being a sheeple is a choice.
You're right. I'm going to give you that. You're right.
Doing nothing.
Maybe
Nothing is a choice.
Right.
Have you ever heard of Dolores Cannon before, Michael?
Yes, I've heard of her, but I don't recall what the connection is.
Okay, well, Dolores Cannon did deep regressive hypnosis to heal people's bodies.
Oh, yes, I remember that now, yes.
Okay, well, she passed away a few years ago, but I'm very familiar with her, and I've even spoken with her daughter. Well, one of the things Dolores would do was she would have people come to her with illnesses, and she would do this deep hypnosis and use their mind to heal their body. And sometimes people would say, well, I didn't get any effect out of it, but she had one guy that she referenced to that he hated his ex-wife. He divorced her, and he couldn't get over the divorce and how he got taken and blah, blah, blah. And she said, well, all the hypnosis in the world isn't going to help you if you don't forgive her and let that go. And he said, well, I can't. She'll win. And he said, well, she's winning anyways because you're ill, because you're holding all that hate in. And people don't understand that, we have to turn the page, people. Turn the page. Let it go.
Well, the thing is that, when you are angry at somebody, they are taking up all of your consciousness. You aren't even free to create yourself or to create your reality because you're so focused on them. They are completely unaffected by your being completely wrapped up in it. It's not hurting anybody but you when you are having a huge resentment against somebody.
Right, and this caused illness.
And here's the thing. A lot of people are not, that are said to be psychotic or have neurosis of one sort or another. That's all a choice as well. And insanity is a choice. And
agreed.
And the thing is that what people have to understand is that there is always the possibility that you can choose something different. And again, what's wonderful about our bodies is they outpicture every one of our attitudes. If you have some sort of condition that is, a degenerative condition or something like that, you are just outpicturing your own degenerative attitude.
I think Edgar Casey said the same thing as Dolores Cannon said. When the sleeping prophet, a lot of people would go to him to cure their illnesses, and he would simply say, you need to do this, that, and the other thing, getting that information from the other side. And, there were many people who tried to, scam Edgar Casey and into getting, again, the profit, can I get the winning lottery numbers, or what horse is going to win on this day? And he found out that he was getting very sick every time he did that, because what he was doing was not for profit. And the guides, the consciousness from the other side said, you know what, you can't allow this to happen. So he had to take responsibility for what he was doing, and then he pushed that forward to, the readings he was doing for the other people. Says, you know what, this is not about profit, this is not about greed, this is not about power. This is about consciousness and health for the human body, and acknowledgement that everything does exist on the other side. And this is about a process of learning, expanding your consciousness, and moving forward to get to the next level of existence. And
yes.
Again, we live in a kindergarten, or like you said, probably not even that, infantile state.
Yeah, and the problem is everyone's so confused they can't figure it out, and there's only one word that sums it all up: love.
Yes.
Well, yeah. So that's the ultimate. That is the ultimate principle by which the whole universe lives. I mean, life. You can't have life without love. There has to be a push, a thrust to energy in order to continue life, and all of these things are against life. And it's like, you guys are nuts. Why are you trying to, you're never going to win against life anyway. You're going to be alive forever whether you like it or not.
Exactly. I
want to just touch on one other point about decision and insanity and neurosis and things like that. And again, that it's a choice. And I was very fascinated by what a psychiatrist I read on Facebook who had posted, and he was saying, most of the things that are making people crazy are really bad decision making. It really has nothing to do about some sort of badness in them or some sort of moral deficit in them, but it's really more that they made some poor decisions and they can't move forward from it. And really, again, it comes down to forgiving yourself. When you make a poor decision, you have to move forward from it by forgiving yourself first. In fact, that is the basis of all love for yourself, is to forgive yourself. And by the way, I would say you can't really truly love another unless you love yourself.
100%.
Yeah,
100%,
that's the first
Michael.
thing you have to do. Before you can love anybody else, you have to love yourself, because you can't love someone else if you don't love yourself. That hate that you have for yourself is just going to project out into everybody else.
But Michael, really quick, you bring up a really good point. Forgiveness. It is about forgiveness. If you can't forgive yourself for the things that you have done to others, then they are not going to forgive you. You're not going to forgive yourself, and you are trapped in a rat cage, and that wheel will spin until somebody gets off.
Yeah, they may have already forgiven you, and you haven't forgiven yourself, and you're living in a prison that you have made yourself. It's like the Eagles song where we live our lives in chains, and don't realize that we hold the key.
Right. Right.
And the key, and again, health in your body has everything to do with loving your body. There's so much of this stuff about, well, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not handsome enough, I'm not sexy enough, whatever. And it's like, wait a minute here. It's not the body that's important, it's the consciousness that is riding in this body that is using
Michael, especially if you chose to come in that situation, to recognize it, to understand it, to live that situation, so you could understand, to see what it means to be fat, or what it means to be thin, or what it means to be ugly, or what it means to be too beautiful. That's the thing that people don't get.
Even a very severe handicap. Why are babies born with severe handicaps? Is God bad or something? No, it's because they chose that to be able to understand loving themselves even in the face of that, and loving themselves in the face of everybody's, judging them on some sort of beauty standard or whatever, to learn how to love themselves in that sort of context.
I couldn't agree with you more. You and I are on the same page as far as thought process is concerned here, because the reality is most people cling on to, and I hate to say this, okay, and for anybody who's very religious in nature, don't take this the wrong way. I think, I think religion is not a bad thing, but I think it's been twisted and turned into another organization of manipulation and control. And
I agree.
That's why I always said I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual in nature.
Well,
I
let's
believe.
talk about what are the most important things in life? Are they things? Are they material things? No. Is love something you can touch with your hand? No.
No.
Is spirit is invisible. It's intangible. It's immaterial. So is any sort of concept. These are all, consciousness itself is invisible and intangible. Consciousness is not located anywhere. It doesn't have any mass. I mean, the most important things in life are invisible and intangible. This is what's really astounding, is that people think that their body and their things are so important, but they aren't, because when they leave the other side, they're going to find out that it's my consciousness is what I am, not my body and my things.
Right.
100%.
And, and it's what we learn while we're here. We come here to learn, and if we don't finish the class and learn what we were supposed to learn, we have to come back and do it all over again. And I want to come back and do it all over again. I want to graduate.
Yeah.
No, well, I think we all want to. Everybody in this consciousness wants to.
Yes, consciousness wants to evolve. It wants to move forward and become more creative and more expansive. There's just no question about that. It's just that the way that we are raised in this culture is everybody, well, actually every human being, the focus is so much on things and on the body, and it's not really talked about how important that all of the things that are invisible are. I mean, when you say somebody loves another, yes, you can go over there and hug them or something like that.
Right.
There's a kind of a physical sort of thing. But the love itself, you're only seeing the action of something which is invisible and intangible. And
right, it's on the self. It's on the physical. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all focused on that. And I'm not saying it's easy to overlook that, because the thing is that we're caught up so much in the survival of our bodies and our status and our making a living and all those sorts of things. But nevertheless, if you're going to make some sort of progress in evolving your consciousness, that's where you have to start. I'm going to just say one more thing about out-of-body experiences, because it was fascinating when I had my first out-of-body experience. I understood something that was just totally astounding, and that is, well, several things actually, that consciousness is not confined to the body, and the second thing is that consciousness is not the body, and consciousness is forever. I understood right then and there that I was something that had always been, and that I would not, and when the body died, I would simply leave it and pick up another one at another time. Having an out-of-body experience, maybe this could be something for another program you guys could do. I would be very interested in hearing about people that have expertise in that sort of area.
Well, we should do it together then, because obviously you know enough about it to talk about it.
Yeah, the Monroe Institute, for instance, who has been guiding people to have out-of-bodies for a long time. What's so cool about that is that you get a first-hand experience of being a spirit without a body.
Yep.
That's really astounding.
That's right. That's exactly right. I'm very familiar with the Monroe Institute, yes.
Yeah, you have a completely different perspective on things after that, because you realize that that body is moving around over there. I mean, when something lives or dies, you can tell that something is gone there that is invisible, that is holding that whole thing together. It doesn't matter whether it's an animal or a human being. It's the same sort of thing. It's like something has left. That's
right. Let me put it this way, Michael. For people who are not understanding this, or maybe are trying to view this in a scientific sort of way, everything is in a constant state of motion. There is nothing that is in a state of quiescence. In other words, that is motionless. The universe is always in a constant state of motion. Without that constant state of motion, this universe and everything, the consciousness that exists in it, would not be here. We would not be talking. There would be no planets, no stars, nothing. Everything exists in a constant state of motion. What is the constant state of motion? It's constant state of frequencies and waves that undulate and transmit and transmit within each other, wave in and out of each other. Without it, nothing would exist.
Well, the science of it is really quite astounding, because you can go and there's a book out there, The Fundamentals of Quantum Mechanics, which was written by a mathematician. I believe his name was Bell. He's responsible for the Bell inequality, which proved that non-local connections exist. But he pointed out that none of this stuff could be happening without the idea of the observer. Now, in quantum mechanics, there's a great deal of, there's not a lot of controversy yet, but there will be. And that is that the so-called measurement problem, where you can't measure the position and momentum of something at the same time with unlimited accuracy, is really a measurement problem, when in fact it's not. They have done experiments now where they take people off the street and they have a quantum experiment going on, and depending on what the person wants the outcome to be, they give them that you have outcome A, B, C, D, and so on. I don't know how many outcomes was in that particular research. They can decide which one it is. So each of us is an observer that creates reality. We collapse the wave function, and what that actually means is that we are literally creators of physical reality. Now,
and that also explains time travel, by the way, for anybody who's really paying attention to what Michael's saying.
Well, in fact, in the quantum field, there is no time, because in the quantum field, everything that has happened, everything that is now happening, and everything that will ever happen is all happening simultaneously. There is no arrow of time.
Exactly.
In fact, the mathematics of quantum, what do they call them? Antimatter, is that a positron, which is an electron but with a positive charge, is actually traveling backward in time. There was a physicist by the name of Richard Feynman who came up with these Feynman diagrams that have space on one axis and they have time on the other. It turns out an electron is moving forward in time, but a positron is moving backward in time. And in fact, if you look at the mathematics of quantum mechanics, it's really astounding. Most of it is in the form of what they call complex conjugate pairs. These are mathematical entities that are wave functions that propagate from the beginning of time and from the end of time. And so that everything in between, what we're experiencing right now, is a hologram of wave functions.
Exactly. You're explaining equal balance between function and non-function, but basically what it is.
Kind of what we were talking about last week.
Exactly.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about this last week. Michael, have you ever heard of Bruce Van Natta?
Let me interrupt on one point. There is a book out there that you can read by Fred Alan Wolf called Star Wave, which explains this idea of two waves that are propagating from the beginning and the end, the alpha and the omega, and that time travel is really just changing the focus of your consciousness into a different place in this hologram, because the hologram is all time and space in one piece.
I wonder if that's why when we get in an accident, because I've been in a couple of car accidents, car wrecks, and while they're happening, it's like you go into slow motion.
Oh, yes, and actually this is a part of what our consciousness is. We don't just exist in this frequency level. This is the lowest of frequency levels. We're actually in Hertzian. The Earth is vibrating at the Schumann frequency of about 8 hertz. That's what they call ELF waves, or extra long frequency. Suppose you're operating in infrared or in light or in ultraviolet. Those frequencies are much faster and have much faster times. A person operating there would be able, if we were in the middle of a car accident and it was going to happen, they would able actually to go to that higher frequency, open their door, walk over to the other car, turn the steering wheel, close their door, go back in their own car, and then let everything go back to the same frequency and avoid the accident.
Michael, really quick, is it Anthony Gonzalez Star Waves?
No, no, Fred Allen Wolf.
Fred Allen Wolf, because I want to put it in the chat as you guys
Fred
are talking.
Allen Wolf, the book is called Star Waves. He has a wonderful explanation about the complex conjugate pairs I was talking about, the 2 quantum waves. And by the way, guess what? These quantum waves are not material. They're immaterial. They're mathematical structures, but guess what? They tell energy where to be and in what state to be. So you see, consciousness actually tells energy what to do. And that, of course, goes back to the observer effect, that we are collapsing the wave function, or collapsing a wave. Let's say you have a light wave, you collapse it into a particle by observing it. Guess what? When you look away from it, did you know that it actually smears out over all time and space?
I actually understand that very critically.
Isn't that weird? I mean, it's astounding.
It's not weird to me, though. It's
your expectation. It's your expectation that makes objects solid. As the observer, you could decide that you are finished with that object, and it would simply disintegrate into its component energy.
And I just posted that in the chat. You can get that book on Amazon, by the way.
Yes, I would also like to again reiterate the calcium factor by Dr. Reich and Robert Barefoot that I talked about. That's a very important book that talks about the pH of the body and how important it is, and how important calcium is in regulating the pH, and how you can use that information to help yourself with any disease, and especially cancer.
Okay, let's get back on colloidal silver for a minute. Why?
But why?
Hey, come on now, bear with me. I get to butt in here for a minute, you guys. Don't laugh at me.
You don't want to be out there in that extragalactic interdimensional space.
Yeah, I'm up here flying around like a balloon. Reel me back in.
All right.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Get back in.
Let's talk about the flu epidemic and some of the things that you can that people are having problems with that colloidal silver can help.
Oh wow, this is really a wonderful topic, because the most common testimonial that I get from people is that they don't get colds and flu anymore. And in fact, my own testimonial is at one period I went 12 straight years without getting cold or flu. I did get a bit of the flu earlier this year, but I guzzled some colloidal silver, and it was really, stopped in about 3 days. And
you don't have to take a lot of colloidal silver, do you? How much colloidal silver are you taking?
Well, I take a maintenance amount every day of about 2 to 3 ounces of 15 part per million. But actually during the wintertime, the December, January, February months, I go back to 5 part per million, because it has a much larger fraction of small particles, which are most effective against viral diseases like colds and flu. And this testimonial, I mean, this is all stuff from testimonials where, like I said, the most common one I get is I don't get colds and flu. Now, here's the other thing. My business is up 50% right now and is not going down at all. And, of course, what's the big deal right now? Flu season.
Right.
And people are starting to...
And, Michael, for those that came in a little late, because we did have a couple people come in late, Why don't you tell them exactly how they can get one of these from you, where they would go to order it, or if you have a phone number to give out or a website? Why don't we give out that information?
Yes, I have a website. It is lifeforcecolloidalsilver.com.
All right, I'm going to put that in the chat too. Go ahead.
I'll put that in there, lifeforcecolloidalsilver.com. All four of those words run together. And on my website, I market these colloidal silver generators. I have 4 basic models. They all produce colloidal silver at the same rate in the same way, but the Easy 1 is a battery-operated model. The Easy 2 is plug-in. The Combo 2 is plug-in and battery, and then I make an international unit for people that are going overseas. The power supply will work on 240, anything from 100 to 240 volts. Colloidal silver is very simple to make. You just need a canning jar, a glass jar, and some distilled water. Distilled water is a little bit harder to get a hold of in the third world, but what I have been told is that go to an automotive store. They have distilled water for batteries to put into your battery if the battery level is down. You can also make it with well water, purified water, and so on. But what happens is that the silver will react with the mineral content that is there first, and when that's all reacted, then it will start making colloidal silver. So you'll have a mixture of ionic silver compounds and colloidal silver. That's not a problem because ionic silver is effective, and here's an example. In the 48 states in this country, for a period of about 5 decades, it was mandated in the 48 states that a silver nitrate solution, which is a ionic silver compound, a 1% solution, several drops were to be put into newborn infants' eyes. It was discovered clear back in the 1870s that most congenital blindness was caused by the gonorrhea bacteria being in the birth canal. And so that's why it was mandated to do this. They now use different, more expensive drugs rather than silver nitrate. But let me give you an idea here. A 1% solution of silver nitrate is 10,000 parts per million. During the wintertime, I'm taking 10 parts per million. So you're actually taking very dilute suspensions or solutions, if you will, of colloidal silver. I have, of all the people that I have sold machines to, and it's probably bordering on 16 or 17,000 machines, I haven't had a single person say that they've had any bad effect from it. I had one person say it was just too bitter, and they didn't want to take it. And I said, well, there's no way to get rid of that metallic taste because the metallic taste tells you that you've got suspended metal particles in there. Now, these metal particles are not able to be seen. They're nanoparticles. That means they're in the range of 1 nanometer to about 900 nanometers. A nanometer is 1/billionth of a meter. Very, very tiny. They're so small, in fact, that an electron microscope can't see them. Only the very largest ones at about 1 micron, about 900 nanometers. And let's see, what was the other? Oh, and the cold and flu thing, like I said, what I personally do is take the 5 part per million during the winter months, and then I do 15 part per million for the rest of the year because it is broad spectrum. It has the full spectrum of the smallest particles to a few big ones. And that way you've got activity against all 3 sizes of microbes, starting with viruses, which are the smallest, then bacteria are medium, and the single-cell organisms, yeast and fungus, are most affected by the larger particles. That's what my machines do, and here's another thing. I designed these machines specifically so that you could get into one for under $100. Because if you go to the health food store, you're going to pay anywhere from $30 to $50 for a pint of colloidal silver.
And even higher, Michael. I've seen it as high as, and the scams out there, of course, you know as well as I do, that they're going to charge 1,000 times the amount of what it costs them to make it.
That's what
and you know,
got into these
that's
machines.
how Michael and I met, because I called and ordered one, and me and him got talking, and the more we talked, I said, you got to be on my show.
Well, and this has been a brilliant conversation. I mean, you are. I mean, you think. I think like you, and you think like me. I mean, it's you know, I wish the whole planet thought like us. And you know, peace and prosperity, and onto the stars, right?
Yeah, I'm just. I'm very happy to have met you on this program. I mean, people of like mind are few and far between at this point, but they're becoming more common, which is nice. And like I said, because I'm in kind of a fringe business with a fringe product, I get to meet all kinds of them. I mean, I've had hours-long conversations like I did with Badbaby, you know, about all the stuff in the world going on, and it was wonderful. And like I said, I'm not out to make a huge amount of money. I could if we started selling millions of machines, but like I said,
sure.
15,000 machines is not much compared to 600 or 700 million active accounts on Amazon, and I've sold 15,000 machines.
And there's 9 billion people on the planet, and they can all use a little colloidal silver.
Yeah.
And I ordered a machine from him, and he also sells, you know, sections of the silver. I ordered a coil of silver from him so that I had extra silver here.
Yeah, you can
and
buy
you know, and I wanted to ask you, Michael, is that going to come UPS?
Yeah, no, it'll come USPS. I use the Postal Service. That has been the easiest, simplest, and cheapest way to do it. I'm trying to save money, really, for people.
Yeah, okay. I just want to know what guy I look for, because mine hasn't come yet.
Yeah, you're going to be looking for a priority mail package, and it will have your machine in there, and that's how we ship the machines out. And I haven't really considered bottling the stuff because, you know, the funny thing about it is that the bottle and the label would be more expensive than the stuff inside of it.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I mean, a 16-ounce bottle, I mean, one pair of 6-inch silver wires in one of my machines, the 14-gauge wires, will make 75 gallons of 15 part per million colloidal silver.
Right.
And that pair of wires, if you replace it, costs you $10.99.
That's right.
So, and it's like they're going to charge you $50 for a 16 ounces.
Yeah.
And that's if you go on the internet, look at the average price. You are absolutely right. From $50 to $60 to $70 to $80 to $90. So I've seen it as high as $100.
Yeah,
I know the first time I ever used colloidal silver, I had the flu or a cold. Oh, actually, it was like a pneumonia that wouldn't let go. And so I drove myself into the health food store, and I said, I heard colloidal silver will help with this. And she gave me this little 3 or 4 ounce bottle that sprayed in my throat, and it cost me $29.
Yeah, and you can have your own spray bottle at home. When I feel something coming on, I spray it down my throat, I inhale it, or I spray it up my nose. And,
interesting that you said that, because I still have that spray bottle, so I'll make my own colloidal and put it in there.
Well, from testimonials, too, people have told me that they have used nebulizers for very serious lung infections and for lung cancer, and that it has been very helpful to them. And so the thing is like I said, I'm just amazed at the range of testimonials I have from toenail fungus to cancer that people have.
Well, interesting that you said that now, because I do have breathing problems and I use a nebulizer, so I'm going to have to try that too.
Yeah, it gets it right into the lungs there where it can do something. And like I said, the testimonials I'm getting of people that have had lung cancer, very serious lung infections and pneumonia and things like that, have told me that it made a huge difference and that they got well very quickly, much more quickly than the doctors ever expected would happen. And so I'm very encouraged by all these testimonials. Again,
And you realize when you don't get the right intake of oxygen, it affects your whole body. You're tired all the time. You just can't function properly. And that's what really bothers me the worst, is that, you know, like today I was downstairs cooking with my adopted daughter, and she just looked at me and she said, "You're not feeling good, are you?" I said, "No." "How can you tell?" She goes, "I can tell you're not breathing." She said, "I can hear you struggling to breathe."
Yeah, and
but see, I'm so used to living that way that I don't notice it. You know what I'm saying? But others around me are noticing it.
Yeah, and I certainly have a lot of confidence that this will help you. And I'm just, you know, like I said at the beginning of the show, I have just been amazed when people have called me up and said, "You saved my life." They had cancer, or they had a lung condition that you know, the doctor told them, you're just not going to get well, and you're going to be dead in 6 months. And they're not dead; they're quite alive and doing well. And that is just really a wonderful thing. I mean, frankly, when I first got into this, yes, I was thinking I wanted to save people money on something that would really work for them. And frankly, also, for the first couple of years, I didn't have that much confidence in it myself until I started to see the effects in my own body. But at this point, I am thoroughly convinced that from all of the testimonials that I've gotten from people and from my own experience, that this stuff does something. And again, like I said, I have to be careful because it's regulated by the FDA. I can't say it does anything. I can only talk about third-party research and testimonials. So that's why I keep throwing all that in there.
Yeah, so I understand, you know, especially when you're helping people, that gets really squashed on, you know.
Well, and Michael, people are asking for your website, and I've just posted it in the chat, so they're interested, just so you know.
Yes, and that is really wonderful. You know, frankly, when I also got into this business, I was looking to, you know, help on a certain level that, you know, maybe I could make a difference in people not having to spend so much money for things. Like I said, I specifically designed these machines so that you could get into it for under $100, and I specifically made it very simple and easy. We have a quick start guide that I created on here so that in 10 steps in 5 minutes you can get started with your first batch. But like I said, it changed because of the feedback I was getting. I didn't know that I was helping so many people so greatly. That is really a wonderful feeling to have.
Yes, it is. It is.
You know, it all goes back to our earlier discussion where we were out there in intergalactic space about love. But really, love is, you know, it's invisible. We're only seeing the effects of love being when it's expressed. And
you know what I think has been really amazing in the last, I'd say, couple of years, is how people that do know, their eyes are open and they know the whole gamut, that none of this material stuff matters, that what matters is how we love one another and help one another, and we're here for this purpose. We're awake to what's going on. We've cleansed our bodies from the fluoride and the dumbing down, you know. It's like someone kind of turned the light bulb on for us. And what I find amazing, and this is the wondrous part about it, is that we're all connecting. Like I found you, and I found Robert, and many, many others that are on the same page, that we're just all connecting all of a sudden.
Well, this is the thing, is that consciousness acts on a different sort of thing than magnetism, where opposite charges attract and opposite poles attract. Consciousness is likes attract. And this is the thing, is that consciousness is like a great ocean where we're all like fish in this ocean. And the fish don't even know the water is there, okay? And we're the same way. We don't even know that we're living in this ocean of consciousness. But everything that we think and everything that we feel is radiating out into that consciousness ocean, and we're also picking up everything that is being radiated in the ocean, in our ocean as well. Our brains are so fantastically powerful, we don't even realize the bare minimums of it compared to where the ETs are that have technology that is tens of millions of years in the future. They understand that on an incredible level, and they know that they can pick up the thoughts of anybody, anywhere, because they're all out there in that ocean of consciousness. And so, of course, we are going to find each other because we have similar thoughts, and those thoughts have a frequency. Again, everything is frequency specific. You have a frequency specific signature to your consciousness and to your being, and you're going to attract those people into your consciousness and into your reality that vibrate at the same rate.
Well, I had a guest on my show. Her name was Ann Eller. She's an elderly woman who had a UFO experience. And when I called her, it was like we were old friends for a long time. She said, you can come down and stay with me and visit wherever you want. We'd stay up all night telling stories and laughing. And, you know, that's exactly how you and I started connecting when I called to order the generator. We just started talking like we knew each other for years.
Yeah, it really is wonderful that way. And this is what is also happening with the whole population on the Earth. There's a great separation or division going on where there's like these two opposite poles that are attracting, and we're all hoping that I know it's going to happen, is that the greater pole of love is going to bring all of these people and entrain their frequency into this frequency. And there's going to be a great awakening from this, because that's really in alignment with life, because life is about evolution. Life is about expansion. The other stuff is about death and destruction and war and control and all of that kind of baloney. And it's all, I mean, just think about it. If you're one of the people that owns the world and, you're spending 24 hours a day thinking about your power, how to increase it, how to keep other people from stabbing you in the back and taking it away, you don't have a life. You have nothing creative going on in your life because you're consumed by your addiction to power.
You know, I actually saw a video on Facebook yesterday where two guys were in a fist fight in a Subway over who they got in a fist fight on the floor and knocking everything down in the store over who was going to get their sandwich first.
Oh, Jesus. And it's
my.
It's like how, where is the, see, it's a matter of, what can you say, perspective and also a sense of proportion. What really is important and what isn't. What sort of perspective do we have here when you're fighting over a sandwich? You're no more than an animal. What sort of consciousness is that? That's the most base consciousness. I mean, I see the whole thing about all of the LGBTQ movements and all this. It's all about the body. It's all about sexuality. Where is consciousness in this? Isn't that just the most base stuff that they want you to focus on? Sexuality?
They want to keep you in that animalistic thought process so you don't evolve. This is part of the elite and their control over the planet.
Yeah, and we're going to fight over sexual preference?
Right.
Who cares? How about if we start looking about the starving people in the world who can't even, I mean, if you don't have your basic needs met, you can't even have a thought about a spiritual topic.
Oh, but Michael, trust me, they'll give them cell phones. They'll be starving, but they'll get cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
That's guaranteed.
Yeah, it's a sad situation that is the case. When, if you you can do the calculations yourself, and it's not hard to do this. If you take and divide the total wealth of the world into the number of people that are in the world, we'd all be millionaires. Why isn't that the case? Well, because of hoarding. And why does hoarding happen? Because of the Neolithic institution of inheritance. What happens is that fewer and fewer people have more and more of the wealth. Why is it a good thing to pass along what you have created in your lifetime to your progeny when they didn't create it? They don't have any responsibility for it at all. It should go back, to me it seems, into a community pot where everybody has a piece of it after that, and they can create their wealth from that.
Michael, they're simply recreating neo-feudalistic oligarchy systems of the past. Go back to the 1600s. That's exactly what it's trying to recreate, reproduce what they have had control of. But here's the difference.
Oh, yeah, but inheritance goes back to Stone Age time.
I agree with you. But here's the breakaway situation. And this is my opinion. You can give me your thoughts on this. But since they let go of their control or were not able to control the internet, we grabbed hold of the reins and started pulling them in towards us. And now they're in a losing battle because we, the people who have this thing called the internet, are able to communicate worldwide, yet transmit our ideas and thoughts, and they have lost control of the narrative, and they are desperately trying to get that back. And I don't think they're going to. I think the yin and the yang, I think that part of it is shifting from the black into the white at this point.
Oh, yeah. And in fact, because we live in a free will universe, like I said, the ETs respect free will above everything unless the planet is endangered.
Yes.
Did you know that everything that is being done in secret is on the internet because they have to publish it in some form?
Well, they have to communicate with each other.
Well, yes, but the other thing is that if they didn't, they could actually be taken down by the ETs because they have to honor the free will universe.
Right. And of course,
like
Lindsay,
if anybody out there doesn't believe any of the things we say and we just think we're all having tinfoil hats on there.
I've got mine on right now, Michael.
Yeah, just go out there on the internet and put any of these things in there like ETs or the deep state or whatever. There are thousands of hits, and when you start reading through it and correlating it with the other information and the events that are going on, it's very hard to see how you can't come to the conclusion that it's real.
Yeah, there's no other conclusion you can actually come to if you're a common sense thinking awake person. There is no other conclusion you can come to. Now, for those sleeping masses who still want to believe that Hillary Clinton is their savior, there is no solution for them other than to get hit over the head with a hammer for the awakening. But for the rest,
Hey, do you guys remember the speech that she did where she came out and she actually got booed there?
Oh, yeah.
She said, I think we should build camps for people who don't agree with us.
Exactly. Yeah. Those are called prison camps.
And then when she got booed, she goes, we could make it fun. The reds over here and the blues over there. And she tried to make a joke out of it.
Yeah, and this, of course, is why sexuality and food and sports and all of it and war and violence is all pushed because they know that gets everybody's juices going, and they don't look at what's really happening. Although, there's one other thing I want to put out there. Have you ever heard of Project Mockingbird?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
A CIA program that came out in the 60s, I believe. Casey was the head of the CIA, and in fact, he was quoted as saying, "Until all the people in the, when all of the people in the country believe the lie, then we have succeeded." And here's the interesting thing: at 4 a.m. every morning, the CIA does a drop to all of the media services, and they have the talking points for the day. Why do all the major media outlets publish the same story with the same words sometimes? I've seen this on Facebook, too, where, you would see a news broadcast, these local news broadcasts from 25 different places in the country, and they used all exactly the same wording.
Yeah, same script.
Yeah.
There's videos where you can go and see that on YouTube where they all say, Donald Trump did blah, blah, tweeted out today, blah, 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 and then you go to the next channel, our President Donald Trump tweeted out, blah, 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 Yeah, they all say the same thing.
Exactly, and sometimes it's exactly the same words. And so
Yes.
the thing is that how do you set aside the idea of there being no conspiracy when there is just piles of evidence there showing you that there is?
Well, and that's it. That's the brainwashing technique. They're telling you that they're doing this to you, but because they're mocking us at the same time while they're telling us,
Right.
we are shamed into believing that what we're actually understanding. We're tinfoil hat wearing nuts, and this is the propaganda they've used for over and over and over.
Well,
Yeah.
Jane Pauley blew it when the second plane hit the Twin Towers. Before the plane hit, she had her mic on still and didn't realize it, and she said the second plane hit already, and it never hit yet.
Yeah, I know. The 911 was an inside job, and having a background in physics, and you can see this also. I posted this on Facebook as well. Different physicists have pointed out that the buildings came down at almost free fall speed. That cannot
not
happen.
almost. It was free fall speed, Michael.
Have the pancaking thing doesn't work from a physics standpoint. If those columns have structural integrity, the top 15 or 20 floors may have collapsed, but because of the incredible strength of the columns that are there, it would have stopped pancaking. And in fact, there have been 40 and 50-story skyscrapers that have been on fire in other parts of the world, and they didn't collapse like that at all.
That's exactly right. Well, here's the real critical deal to that, the whole 9/11 thing. The moment, let's say Fox News or our president or someone from inside the government says, why did Building 7 collapse when it was never hit by a plane and just had small debris hit the building, but yet it collapsed in a free fall style implosion? The moment that is propagated on some sort of mainstream, then the whole narrative will fall apart.
Yeah, and it has. On Facebook, I've actually posted videos done by civilians that show the actual explosions happening while Building 7 was collapsing. And
that's right.
Well, here's the thing. What is the most profitable business that you can be in? War.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Okay.
There's no more profitable business.
Yeah, so we have war
and prisons.
This created the war on terrorism. And that war on terrorism, how much money has been spent on there, on the wars against terrorism with Iraq and Afghanistan?
Hundreds of billions.
Trillions of dollars. And here's the thing, they love it because all the banks have to lend money to all the people making the weapons and all the governments that buy the weapons, and then they lend money to all the people that take and rebuild the countries.
100% accurate on everything you said.
And this has been going on since the Rothschilds, were involved in the Napoleonic Wars, where I think it was Frederick de Rothschild who was at the British Exchange, and he put on a long face, because a courier was coming in to say who won the Battle of Waterloo. He put on a long face as if the British had lost. There was a huge sell-off. He bought up, everything for pennies on the dollar, and then they found out that Wellington had won. That's
right. That's exactly right.
He
bought the country for pennies to the dollar. And that was it.
They control the Rothschilds control the Bank of England.
Right.
The Balfour Declaration in 1918 or 1917, where Balfour was the foreign secretary for the British, and Rothschild, of course, decided that he wanted to have a couple 100,000 Jews move out of Europe into Palestine. And this was based on George Herzl's book about Zionism. He created the idea of Zionism. And of course, they can look into the future. If you take the longest continuing conflict in the world right now is the Palestinian conflict, which started in 1917. It's gone on for over 100 years. And what was it all about? About oil. Because why Why is the price of oil high? Because it's surrounded by war.
Yeah.
And they knew that this was what was going to happen because they have friends in high places. There are ETs who are not very nice people.
Absolutely.
And the Nazis, for instance, were given technology by some of these not-so-nice ETs. And they did have Foo Fighters, which were anti-gravity craft, and they were photographed, and you can see them on the Internet. Like I said, all this stuff is on the Internet. You don't have to take my word for it or anybody's word for it. The information is out there.
And Michael, I agree with you.
Have you noticed, Michael, that some of them are newscasters and in law enforcement, and they lose their somehow they can look human, but then when they're stressed or there are a lot of flash bulbs from the cameras go off, they start falling apart a little bit and showing their alien side.
Well, that's possible, but who is the CNN guy who is he's the heir to the DuPont fortune?
Well, I know the DuPonts are heavily involved in it, but
he has really white hair and he's thin.
Are you talking about the CIA shill?
No, the CNN. He's actually a broadcaster on one of the major networks.
Right. I think you're talking about.
What is his name anyway? What is a heir to the DuPont fortune doing as a broadcaster on a major media piece, on a major media platform? Some sort of conflict of interest here, maybe.
but I also know that he was with the CIA, and that's what I was trying to mention. Is that yes, from the DuPont family. He was part of the CIA, and that is Anderson Cooper. Thank you.
Anderson Cooper, yes, that's who it is. And heir to the DuPont fortune. And he said, I didn't get very much. He said, I didn't get very much money out of that. Not that's not hidden overseas somewhere. Now, I've really been enjoying the QAnon stuff because, it's just so fascinating about Snowden, who was, his first job was with the CIA. So he was a CIA plant in the NSA because the CIA wanted to destroy the NSA because they saw it as a competition for the intelligence community. And so that's what he did. How did he ever get out of Hong Kong to Russia? If they really wanted to stop him, they could have.
Yeah.
But if you are already a CIA operative, then you're going to end up in Russia just fine. Now, the funny thing about this is that since that has happened, Snowden has had all kinds of second thoughts because he sees that he was also manipulated by the CIA. And then we have Assange, who was a major player, and he was actually passing information by the good guys that were still in the FBI. He was getting that information out of the intelligence services and the CIA and the FBI, and that's how he was able to manage to get those emails of Clinton out because the NSA was giving it to him through.
That's right. They were feeding it to him exactly.
Yeah, and so it's just really wonderful how this is all coming out, and this is just the beginning of it. People are going to be, especially the Clintonites, are going to be absolutely, their jaws going to drop to get the floor.
The can is open and the worms will come crawling out.
Listen, I have a friend who is going to be, and he's a liberal. He's just a liberal, brainwashed, unfortunately, nuttard. And all this came out today. Now, I was playing with golf with some friends the other day, and we were talking about this. I said, "Look, you don't understand what's happening." And he's talking about Trump collusion. And I'm like, you're so brainwashed. You have no idea what's going on. I said, you wait till Friday. And I said, your whole world's going to come crumbling down. I'm pretty sure right now he and his wife are panicking in a corner somewhere with coloring books and crayons and petting their dogs at this point.
Well, one thing was really obvious to me, when Comey let Hillary off the hook. And in fact, it's interesting. They have now pointed out that his letting her off the hook, he had written up the paper before he even interviewed her.
3 months. 3 months before.
Yeah. And the thing is that Comey used to be a executive for the Clinton Foundation.
Exactly.
And what was Loretta Lynch meeting with Clinton on that?
Right here in my home state, Michael. Right here in my home state. I watched it in the news as it broke.
Yeah, and Comey says, yes, she egregiously or recklessly, worked with intelligence, which is actually the definition of actually breaking the law.
Well, remember, they changed the wording. They changed the wording to call it a matter so they could not indict her. So they exonerated her 3 months prior. They had the collusion, right? The meetings, everything, the tarmac and Loretta Lynch and Comey, they all conspired to call it a matter so she could not be indicted.
Yeah, well, the thing is it's not going to be,
no.
I mean, the investigation has already been reopened.
Yeah,
and now the other thing is I thought that QAnon was very interesting about is that they're saying that they're not looking to try and go to a trial because they can't, you're not going to get a fair trial.
That's right.
Okay, but what they can do is that Trump signed a really interesting executive order that makes it possible for the executive branch to confiscate any funds or any assets that are determined to be a part of a criminal activity. And so
there goes all their money.
Yeah,
exactly.
So they will lose everything that they have and have to be living in an apartment and going to the grocery store themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what?
They can give some of that money back to the children they ripped off in Haiti.
Michael, we're at the end of 2 hours here. Do you want to pick this up next week with us again? Because this is so fast. I could talk to you for another 20 hours. And we would finish.
I've got lots and lots of information in this head. That's for sure. Because I've gone all the way from microbiology to quantum physics to God and love and all this kind of stuff. But that's just where my mind is at. And
Mine
this
too.
is really enjoyable. We did manage to talk about colloidal silver a little bit.
We did.
And actually, I think that will probably happen is that I will see a large bump in sales, which is nice. But like I said, I'm not trying to make a huge living. I'm making a good living with this. But the thing is that I'm not a millionaire or a billionaire by any stretch of the imagination. I would have to be selling millions of machines to rather than thousands to get to that place. And actually, I'm a little home-based business. I run my business out of my home. I have 2 shipping contractors that run all of my shipping and receiving out of another home. And they have the warehouse is a great big 3-car garage. And all the people that build machines for me build the machines in their homes. And it's really a very, it's very much a cottage industry. I'm not sure what I will do if it does get really expanded, to have to open a factory or something.
That'd be wonderful, though.
Yes, I certainly wouldn't have any problem with that because, number one, really, like I said, my perspective was changed. At the beginning, I just wanted to help a few people and make a good living. But, boy, things have changed. The feedback has really changed my whole perspective on what I've created with this business. It's really quite wonderful.
It's a wonderful thing. You're helping human beings and, of course, making a living. And it is LifeForce, COLLOIDALSILVER.com. You guys go right to the website. I did post it in the chat. And also to the book that you had mentioned earlier, I wanted to plug that as well. Go ahead.
The Calcium Factor by Dr. Carl Reich and Robert Barefoot.
Okay, wonderful.
And then the second book I talked about was called Star Wave, and
that's right.
By Fred Alan Wolf, and he explains the quantum concept behind the holographic universe and how time and space are all happening at once, and it's just our conscious focus that places us in a particular point in that time-space continuum.
Which I kind of happen to agree with you. So, do you, Badbaby, do you want to pick this up next week and we can go for another 2 hours? Because this has just been so fascinating.
And
We'd
love to have you back, Michael.
Well, let me give that I have to see what the fallout is from this, because if things get very busy, we may have to put it off for a week or two. Also, I'm also going to visit my mother on Valentine's Day down in Texas, and so I'm going to be doing some traveling, and I don't like the airplanes, and I don't like the security stuff. So I'm going to travel by car. So in any case, yes, I would like to pick this up. I've really enjoyed this conversation because we have gone across the board to a lot of different topics that I'm very much jazzed about, and also I've gotten an opportunity to, talk about my company and about the whole health community in this country. That's been wonderful.
Well, maybe.
Michael, do you want us to, since you've got all this on the agenda, you want to wait a couple weeks and come back then?
Yes, that would be more like it. I think that'd
be great.
Yeah, that would probably work. Like I said, we'll just keep in touch, and I have to because I know during the Ebola scare in 2014, we were selling about 200 machines a month. In October 2014, we sold 1,139 machines.
Wow!
Now you can imagine how crazy things were.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have to be careful with this because I don't know how much of a bump I'm going to get from this. Who knows? I might have turned everybody off because I'm so fringe.
No, not here. Not here, trust me.
Well, I hope so.
Okay, Michael. Well, we want to thank you for joining with us tonight. It's just been a delight. I know that our paths connected for a reason. I was researching buying a colloidal silver generator for quite a while, and I was directed to your site, and I just called you right up, and that's how we found you.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I will message you and let you know. Probably 2 weeks we'll have you back and do it again.
I would like to talk a little bit more about the science and everything, because there's so much misinformation about the science of making colloidal silver out there. And but I also wouldn't mind following up on some of the world events that are happening now.
Absolutely.
There's probably going to be some really amazing revelations between now and a couple weeks from now.
Yeah, and if you could pull up some of the testimonies that people have written you and read a few of them, that would be kind of nice.
Well, actually, most of them are just a few sentence things there. But like I said, I think I told you this. I don't write down the testimonials or collate them or publish them because I'm concerned about being targeted as practicing medicine without a license.
Right.
So
we got you. We got you. Don't have to go any further. We understand.
Yeah,
okay, well, we're going to close this show out for tonight. Again, I want to thank you, Michael, for joining us. I will post a copy of this recording on your Facebook page for you, and we will get you booked. I will message you on Facebook and let you know what date we're going to have you come back on. And thank you again.
All right. You really are a bad baby.
Thanks, you guys.